Hey, you out there. Welcome to Caching in the Northwest. You know, this is the podcast from the birthplace of geocaching right here in the great Pacific Northwest. Now, it's Thursday at 9 p.m. Pacific. They call me Chris of the Northwest. And we're going to talk about geocaches and geocachers from here and all around the globe. So while you're picking up after the dog on its walk, we'll be caching in the Northwest.
And tonight we're talking about some great ideas for placing a virtual geocache. Yes, virtuals. There's another round of them coming out. For a long time you couldn't do them, but people are getting them. People are placing them. We're going to talk
like candy.
I know it. So live audience, tell us what you think are some great ideas for placing virtual geocaches, in a virtual sense. Can't do that though until we bring in our lost lemur. Some say, like an airplane door, he's often unhinged. And others say he has 9 lives, mostly from identity theft. All we know is he's called Land Monkey.
Hey guys, good to see you. I got to say, I understand why all the airplane door jokes are running rampant these days, but I'm trying to avoid as many of them as possible because I'm flying in the not too distant future. I'm like, yeah, I don't really need to continue feeding that into the psyche. So,
Okay.
When one door closes, another one opens.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. You could also lose a nose wheel, set your cargo plane on fire, any number of things. But you're fine. You're fine.
Oh, good.
It's safer than traveling on the freeways.
Yeah,
right. On the way to the airport. Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, hey, before we get into anything else here, I
just had to jump. Comakino, Alaska Airlines removing all songs from 3 Doors Down on their playlists. It made me chuckle. Okay, please continue.
Okay. What was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say that it's time for a quick reminder that we appreciate the support of our patrons. All of you folks who help to keep this podcast coming each and every week. And, a special thanks out to our corporate Denali level patrons. That would be Landsharks, LANDSHARKZ.ca, one of our corporate Denali level sponsors. Hey, did you know Landsharks still has a limited number of those holiday trackables? So any orders, $25 Canadian and up, you'll get one. So, you can still score some of those. That's a special message just in from our friends at Landsharks.
Very cool.
Like it.
Yeah. And also our other corporate Denali level sponsor, well, that would be Gold Country Geotourism. Visit exploregoldcountry.com, learn about the geotours, learn about the region. Don't forget to download the app. Find it all at exploregoldcountry.com. And folks, if you want to know more about supporting this here podcast, well, we encourage you to go and click on that Patreon link on the cachingnw.com website.
Now, I know we were done with the jokes, but Doramore did a good one. As soon as they make the boarding announcement, I make a bolt for the door.
That's good. That's good. Land Monkey, if you are booking a flight, you can book seat 26A. You'll have the whole row to yourself.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, now I have to go back and look and where am I sitting on these planes? Again, it's only one model of plane.
Right. It really comes down to maintenance, I believe, more than, a flaw in the aircraft, because these aircraft have flown many, many miles. Anyway, speaking of many, many miles, we get many, many miles out of the glow.
Now,
some have asked, what is a glow?
They have asked that.
Yes,
do you have an answer?
And some will even pop it up in the chat here in just a moment.
Oh, okay. So we're waiting? Is that?
Well, I usually do. Here it is. See, what is a glow?
There you go. Now you can proceed.
Okay. The glow is the geocaching log of the week. Thank you for making this interactive. This makes it a lot more fun, at least for me. Yeah. I don't know if you guys enjoy it, and perhaps that this bit is getting old. However, I still like it.
And at the end of the day, you've kind of got control here. So
That's right.
Oh, good.
You're driving the ship here, Bubby.
Oh, man. As long as I'm somewhat entertained, we'll keep this going. Hey, the glow is the geocaching log of the week. So whether you read it or whether you wrote it, we want to hear it because great logs simply make geocaching better. Send an email or a recording. We really like those recordings to feedback@cachingandw.com. You know what? If you don't have time to make a recording, basically pressing one button on your smartphone, that's okay. Press a bunch more, like 10, not 9 more, 10 total. Call into 253-693-TFTC and show us just how you glow.
That's right. So this week's glow, well, it comes to us from Little Bull. Submitted a glow for Moo Girl and Nikki 54's adventure at GC4 Quebec Papa Delta 9.
I thought we were done with the playing jokes.
The log says, out with Nikki 54 on our multi-day quest to grab the entire BMGR swag GeoArt installation. So all kind of acronyms thrown at you already. So swag, of course, is a something we all got, or
something we all,
scientific wild ass guess, or
I think it's the Southwest area geocachers
in this case it is, yes. So I looked it up, a few of them. There's some good ones in there. There's some ones that I'm not going to repeat, but as with most acronyms, you can go where you want with that. The other one in there that you may not know is BMGR. Well, that's the Barry M. Goldwater Range. It's a military range down there, and you need a special permit to go out onto the BMGR to do any activities out there. I did a little homework, don't you know?
Wow,
so
impressive.
I know.
Isn't Barry M. Goldwater a film producer back in the 80s?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's go with that. I think
On
it's
a
more
certain TV show.
So yeah, and the swag that they're talking about, well, it looks kind of like that. There's a whole bunch. There's a star and a S and an asterisk and a W and asterisk, kind of like the old MASH logo. Anyway, It's the BMGR swag GeoArt installation. This, he says, is day 3, he or she, when we focus on collecting the entire set of caches in the Big W.
Oh, now I understand the Big W.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Not to be confused with It's a Mad, 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 Mad World Big W. That's an entirely different Big W. This one's on the BMGR. It says, big adventure at the end of the day as we were hiking back to our vehicles. A helicopter flew over us from behind, and then we were approached by 3 trucks and a quad, all belonging to the U.S. Border Patrol. Supposedly, we had shown up on a scan as 2 individuals with backpacks headed north from the border. 2 of the truck occupants stopped and had a nice, respectful talk with us. We told them we had our BMGR permits and explained that we were geocachers, and they readily said we were okay. They were familiar with geocaching and geocachers. We asked if they'd be so kind as to drive us back to our vehicles, and they said yes.
Oh.
They were also fine with us taking pictures of their vehicles with us in the back seats, and one with both of us posing. Exciting end to our caching adventure today. So there they are with the U.S. Border Patrol trucks.
Wow.
How about that for a little extra flavor to your glow?
That's one way to end your W. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was fun.
That is fun, and thank you so much. There you go. Barry Goldwater's the governor and was a presidential candidate. There you go. Thank you very much to Lil Bull and for sending that in. That would have been just a very I guess probably a little tense at first when the vehicles pull up, but if you've got all your paperwork and you're allowed to be where you are.
Otherwise, like Wet Coaster said, they could have a free trip to Mexico.
Right. But I also see they if they're monitoring their video feeds or whatever, the border security, and it's like, oh, there's 2 people with full backpacks heading north. Maybe we should go check this out.
What could possibly go wrong?
Right? Love it. And they got a free ride out of it. I mean, how nice are these people?
Yeah.
Once you have all the paperwork in place, they're very understanding.
Well, and it's Canadians as well down there. So
Well, Canadians tend to be very nice unless they're on riding lawnmowers, and then
Or-
don't ask them for a ride or directions.
Or directions, yeah.
Yeah.
Or unless they're on a podcast with a lackey as a guest.
Hey,
In particular, lackey.
if you guys want to join into tonight's chat, use the hashtag virtual. That's a virtual hashtag. You don't even have to put anything in there. It's just virtual. No, use the hashtag virtual. Put it in the chat, and our chat lackey will make sure that we get wind of it. And if you want to break other wind, you can use the hashtag FATAS to bring up something in the after show. No, not a good one. Okay. And we'll talk about the FATAS stuff after we get through the content. Now, we're going to break into some news. This just off the wire from Como News. Starting January 25th, if I'm not mistaken, that's today. So it doesn't get any fresher than this, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
starting today, Mount Rainier National Park will require reservations during peak hours at 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. at popular entrances such as Mount Nisqually, Stevens Canyon, Sunrise, White River, and Paradise, which is pretty much all the entrances you're going to want to go to.
I was gonna say
Right.
Paradise isn't really an entrance.
Well, the road to Paradise, right?
The road to it, yeah, which is at Longmire, I think, another place.
Yeah.
Anyway,
And if you're wanting to spend time there before 7 a.m. or after 3 p.m., you don't need this reservation.
okay.
That's peak hours, right?
It's
Okay.
peak hours. So the National Park Service introduced a timed entry system to manage traffic congestion and enhance visitor experience. Reservations can be made through recreation.gov or by calling 877-444-6777 with dates through July available in February, right? So you can start calling next month and getting your dates up to July at this point. Now,
And it's for what period? Like February through July?
the peak, May 24th through September 2nd is
Oh, I
really when the peak visiting season is.
That's because we haven't gotten there yet. Okay.
We haven't gotten there yet. This move aims to address the increasing popularity of the park, ensuring a smoother flow, not through my mouth, but a smoother flow of visitors, reducing the environmental impact. Campsites may still be available first come, first serve, but reservations are recommended, emphasizing the need for visitors to plan ahead for that hassle-free experience in Mount Rainier National Park during the summer season. Now, Kevin Bacher with the Mount Rainier National Park told Como News during peak summer weekends, it wasn't uncommon to see a line of cars idling outside the Nisqually entrance for 2 miles and wait times reaching up to 3 hours.
Yikes.
Holy cow, right?
Yeah, that's crazy. Is this all since COVID?
No, this type of reservation system has been in place in other state parks.
Right. But I mean, this
national parks,
increased demand on the parks, right? Because I think we've seen the demand really spike around with COVID.
Yeah.
Park systems. Anyway,
I've gone up there, taken the family up there, and yeah, there's times where it's difficult to find a parking space.
Yeah.
So the whole idea isn't intended to reduce the number of people visiting the park, but just to spread them out a little bit more and encourage people to visit earlier in the morning and later in the afternoon, and not all right there in the middle of the day.
There you
go. Bacher says, I think people are worried this is not going to be able to get them into the park. They're worried that they're going to be shut out of the park. And we've really tried to structure this in a way that is not the case. So, yeah, the idea is, let's make it more, you can get up there quickly, get into the park, find parking space and enjoy it, right? Rather than sitting, 2 miles outside the park for a couple of hours as you slowly inch forward. And then once you get into the park, trying to find a space to park so you
Yeah.
can go enjoy the rest of it. You
If
know,
by the time that's all over, the sun's set and it's time to go home.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. So the way I interpreted all of the different dates that you mentioned, this policy goes into effect today.
Right.
It affects dates from May 24th to September 2nd, and you can start making those reservations in February up through July. So if you want to make an appointment in August or September, you have to wait. They're not going to release all the dates at once.
Right.
It's going to be staggered through the summer.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
I could be totally wrong, but that's how I interpret what you said.
Thank you. Why don't I just have you read it from now on? You're
Because
so
I did the glow. This was your turn.
Oh yeah. Sorry. We'll have an entire Wits End podcast coming up soon. Where everything will just come out so smooth.
Oh, please no.
Speaking of
Speaking of smooth, it's now Land Monkey's turn.
Well, you know what? Speaking of smooth things, we are going to smoothly transition into giving you guys a little bit of a surprise here. We are really excited. We are partnering with a couple of different organizations. Exactly that kind of surprise. Well played, Chris. To get some prizes out to you listeners. We're going to have a prize from Tony's Coffee. We're going to have a prize from Land Sharks. And the contest is going to start and run for the month of February. So it's going to start February 1st and run till the 29th. Look at that. We gave you guys an extra day. So no complaints, all right?
We've been waiting 4 years to run this contest just to give you that extra time.
Yeah. So anyways, we're really excited. We're not going to tell you anything else about it other than those are the prize sponsors. And if you want to find out more, tune in next podcast when we'll tell you more.
You've got to tune in next week.
Yeah, that'll be February the 1st.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. Exciting.
Up to February the 29th.
That's right.
And one of the prizes is coffee.
Which, you may need because you need to get to Mount Rainier, before 7 a.m. And it's a somewhat long drive, no matter where you are. The mountain is not close to anybody.
Isn't it technically always before 7 a.m.? I mean, right now it's before 7 a.m. tomorrow.
That's true.
So
if we left now, we could get to the mountain before 7 a.m. and enjoy all the time up there we want.
Perhaps, yeah.
Sure. Let's go.
Okay. While you're planning that trip, we're going to talk a little bit about virtual caches. We're up to Virtual Rewards 4.0. And as Chris mentioned earlier, use that hashtag virtual. Let us know your thoughts on the topics that we explored tonight, all about virtual caches, virtually speaking.
Indeed. So why don't we start off, just in case not everybody who's listening to this podcast is on the same knowledge level. What is a virtual geocache?
That's when you wear those goggles, right? And then you're like, your family all makes fun of you as you wave frantically at things, break the TV and all the things I see on.
Trip and fall over,
yeah.
Step on the dog. You would think that's what it is. Chris, do you want to take a swing?
And break things? Yes, I'd love to. Let's go into one of those rage rooms and break things.
Chris needs to do that after every podcast.
If we've done our job right, he does.
Those two.
Yeah.
Chris mad. Okay. So a virtual cache is a type of geocache where there isn't there isn't a container to find or a log to sign. Yet what is there usually is much more of a find.
So you just tag whatever item you find there? Is it?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
So virtual cache is usually in a location where you can't place a physical cache, either because of restrictions or traffic or, I think often national and state parks, right, where they don't want you to put a physical cache just off the trail and damage the environment out there. Or it's in a very busy place. I just found one this week at Pike Place Market,
Yeah.
which, that was one you really can't place a cache there just because of the sheer amount of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
That one's placed by Bounce Bounce. It was one of these virtual rewards. I don't know which generation it was.
Oh, neat.
I think I might have found that one.
It required 3 pictures.
Sounds familiar. I haven't been downtown in a while, but
Nice.
Anyway, yeah, it was quite nice. So a virtual reward or virtual cache is something that I like them. Let me say that. They're unusual. They're in limited numbers.
Mhm.
And, that just drives up the desire to want and go get one.
Well,
Supply
and I
and
think
demand.
that's maybe, yeah. Sorry, Jim.
That's supply and demand, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I think that's maybe a key thing as well to, when we're talking about what is a virtual cache and why it's such a big deal, these virtual rewards, or virtual rewards. Yeah, virtual rewards. Because a virtual cache technically is a grandfathered cache type. You can't just
Mhm.
go and place one.
Right.
Like you can with a traditional or a multi or an earth cache or anything like that. You have to be granted the ability to place one by geocaching.com. And they've been doing that in the last 4 years, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
in rounds. So they will do what they call virtual rewards. And we're on 4.0 now, where they will say, okay, for this year, we're going to give out X number and it's semi-random. And we're going to get into the whole selection process as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people are curious about that, but they go through that process. And so then if you're fortunate enough to get one for that round, then you can place it. But then there's also the little bit of buyer's remorse, I guess, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not exactly the right analogy, but it's people hesitate because like, oh, this is my one shot. Oh, I got to do this right. And so I know for us, we had one in the virtual rewards 3 round, and it took us a while to place it because we were kind of like, oh, we could do this, we could do that, and hem and haw. But we were really happy with where what we did in the end. But I think that's it's a good point as well that it's a grandfathered cache type. So the ability to place them is a bit of a privilege.
Yeah, and people get really excited when they're granted that privilege.
Absolutely.
As we can see, GSM times 2 is excited about it, and Subway Mark is also very excited about the virtual focus. So very, very cool.
And Subway Mark already knows what he's going to do with it.
Yep.
It'll be a sidetracked cache.
Oh, neat.
I was shocked, let me tell you.
I'm thinking when we were in the UK, we did. I can't remember. I think we might have done one sidetracked virtual. We definitely did a couple of virtuals in rail stations. One of them might have been a sidetracked. I have to go and check. I'm not sure. That's cool though. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats to everybody who received them. And yeah, we'd love to hear if you've received one or if you've got ideas of what you would do. Definitely share that.
And that's what we want to focus on tonight is some of the ideas, right? So if you've been awarded one of these and you go, oh man, I'm so excited. I want to make it special, but I'm not sure how. Let's look at some of the top favorited virtual caches, and maybe that will help to get your juices going again.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
One is the Royal Observatory at Greenwich.
That was really, really cool. It was not a hard one to do. And that one's got like almost 2,429 favorite points and well deserved. But that one is cool because it's a really interesting place, obviously. And it's like, can you think of a place that is more appropriate to the game of geocaching?
Exactly.
Than the Greenwich mean line, right? So that's the.
Why is it so mean?
Because people keep standing on it. You get mean after a couple hundred years of people standing on you. But yeah, that one's really cool. Really, it at the end of the day, it's really take a photo of yourself. I think there might be another additional task. I can't recall. Maybe anybody in the chat who might remember. But it's one of those. Take a picture of yourself here, and it's pretty obvious if you're there or not. Right? So But yeah, what an amazing location to bring somebody to with a virtual cache. That's a great one. That's a favorite.
Gearhead was awarded one, and he has his own idea.
Awesome. Good. Another of the world's top most favorited is the Welcome to Las Vegas sign.
Yes. Yes. Great location. People going to stop there anyway and take a picture. Why not make it a virtual?
Exactly.
Let's see. How about Stonehenge? Now, there's an iconic location. You don't want to hide a physical cache there, right?
No.
Right.
I mean, it's one of those historic locations you don't want to interrupt in any way. Yet, it's something somebody's going to be going to.
Yeah, just like another one in the top 10, top 15 most favorited virtuals in the world is the Bean. That's a very famous. That's in Chicago, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Extremely famous piece of outdoor art, but you can't really hide a cache on it or there.
Magnetic, right?
Not one that would last. And you don't want to mark it up, right? Like it's a really neat piece of outdoor sculpture, a very iconic piece of outdoor sculpture. So again, making it a virtual or placing a virtual cache here was a great idea. Any other ones we want to flag there from the list? Basically, what we did, folks, is we grabbed a top 12 list of the most favorited virtuals in the world, and we kind of scanned through those just to think, oh yeah, what makes these unique? Why are these so favorited?
And there are so many of them to choose from that it's hard to narrow a list like that down.
Yeah.
There's one in the Magic Kingdom and in the Florida theme parks and things. But here we are caching in the Northwest. I'm sure there are some memorable virtual caches right here in the Pacific Northwest, right?
Indeed. Yeah, quite a few. Washington and BC for sure.
Yeah. Right off the top is a couple of sites in Seattle that I know very well. The Cary Viewpoint Park. That's that iconic view of the Seattle skyline that people see out Fraser's window?
Fraser's window, yeah.
Yeah. But almost every time that you see a national sports event, football, hockey, baseball, whatever, the news crew typically grabs a shot from there for the commercial bump coming back from break kind of thing. It's just the view that most people associate with Seattle. Great view of the Space Needle up against the buildings in the skyline. And speaking of Space Needle, there's one at the Space Needle. So two of them right there in downtown Seattle. It's a great one.
And when people come into town, I tell them, go to Cary Park. Yeah. You're not going to regret going there. It's a great view of the city.
I had some family in town years ago, and they had some things they wanted to see, and we showed a thing, and they were tired. It was late in the afternoon, and I said, let's make one more stop. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah, let's just do. Yeah. And we pulled in there right at sunset, and it was gorgeous. And they're like, okay, I'm so glad we stopped.
So, if you can time that for either sunset or a little bit before sunset, they get golden hour there.
Yeah. It was great.
Yeah, it's spectacular. And of course, the Space Needle is fantastic to go see at any time.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Late for the Interurban.
That's a classic.
Yes. Now, that one is near the headquarters.
It's like almost in the headquarters.
Yeah, it's right there in the same plaza as the headquarters, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a bunch of bronze statues waiting near the bus stop. It's fun.
Yeah,
it's fun, and I think the thing is, if you've grown up in the Northwest, and if you're in about our age, you'll recognize the characters.
And
I think that's what was most impactful to me. Like the virtual brought me there, and I don't know if I would have noticed it or not, because I mean, when I was there, my goal was to visit HQ, and I'd been there for block parties, and you don't necessarily come up onto the street and into that plaza for the block party unless you're drawn up there by the virtual.
Yep.
Although was the virtual there during the block parties? I don't think so. I think it's newer. I don't know. Because I didn't do it when we were at the block parties. No. Well, anyways, maybe the research department can look it up and see how old it is. But I guess my point being that
it was placed in 2017. So yes, it was there for all the block party. Well, a couple of the block parties.
At least one of them, yeah. Okay. But yeah, I think my point being that, it's again, right? The virtual cache draws you as a geocacher to something, and then you get to have that experience. And for me, the experience was nostalgic and unexpected. So, a very fun experience.
Well, since we're right there in that same area, how about the HQ Geo Tour Gasworks Park?
I often forget that there's a virtual as part of the HQ Geo Tour. Good point. That's an interesting idea. If you've been given a virtual reward and you know of a geo tour being put out in your community,
there you go.
Work with the geo tour operators to get the virtual as part of the geo tour. Wow, that would be
something, wouldn't it?
That would be something else, yeah. What are some of the other ones you've got here?
Gas
Tacoma, Bridge of Glass.
Yep.
Chris, you're the one who told me about that, and said you've got you kept talking about the Shahuli,
yes,
Shahuli Glass Museum and all this stuff. Like, okay, all right, blown glass, all right, whatever. And so eventually, when we came down and visited, we went, and I'm glad we went there.
Yes, yeah. Again, one of those stops that you go, wow, this is great.
Yeah. Also, I'm going to interrupt for a sec. Shout out to Chat Lackey, who's throwing up the GC codes as we go through this stuff. Thank you. Appreciate that.
One that I didn't have until recent was the Peace Arch. I don't know how I didn't get it before, but the last Hands Across the Border event where the WSGA and the BCGA met, I made special effort to go get the Peace Arch virtual.
Nice.
Well done.
Here's an interesting point from GSM times 2. He says, don't do that as far as adding your virtual to GeoTour, because under the current rules, once the GeoTour ends, the geocaches must be archived.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you, GSM times 2.
Yeah.
That is good to know.
So there you go. Now, the HQ GeoTour, I think, is going to have a little bit of nepotism involved there, can we say? Right?
You said it, not me.
We mentioned Pike Place Market. There was a lot of people that mentioned, yes, I did that. Let's see. Brylang says I did Pike Place Market virtual twice. First time the street was so jammed, I just stopped. The 4 of us jumped out, got our pick with the market sign, and jumped back in. Traffic hadn't moved.
That's the Seattle I know.
Yes. The second time was with a different group, and the requirements had changed to 3 pictures. So you had to get a picture with the market sign, with the original Starbucks, some sign or a window, and the gum wall. You don't have to touch the gum wall. You just have to get a picture with it.
All right.
Now, is that the same cache that changed requirements, or is it a new cache?
Good point.
Because
I'm not sure.
I think I did it back when it was 1 photo required. I don't think I did 3.
Just Carlo did the Pike Place virtual in December.
So if it's a new cache, I didn't have it. Oh, Bradley says, yes, it's the same cache.
Oh,
okay.
Very cool. Just Carlo had a great suggestion for folks who are looking for an idea for placing a virtual. Airport virtual caches and Venture Labs are a fun way to kill time waiting for a flight. Absolutely. I know there's at least 2 virtual caches at Vancouver International Airport. There's at least 1 at SeaTac.
Yeah, it's on the list. Flying Fish at SeaTac. There's one of the terminals has a bunch of brass fish in the floor, the sculpture.
And a lot of airports, even the smaller airports like Bellingham, have some sort of interesting art or feature or something that could make a good subject. Actually, one of the ones not on this list, because this list is just Washington, but if I jump to British Columbia, Abbotsford Airport. One of our listeners, I'm not sure if he's in the chat tonight, but not sometimes too. He is in the chat. But he's not who I'm talking about.
But he's not from Abbotsford.
Neither is the person I'm thinking of, but Three Hams and a Rose is the person I'm thinking of. And he has a virtual cache outside the Abbotsford Airport. That's at a retired, there you go, a retired Voodoo fighter jet.
Okay.
Outside the airport.
Whenever I see Voodoo, I think donuts.
Right? Yeah, absolutely.
I think a labyrinth, but okay.
Okay.
This is an old Canadian Forces Voodoo jet interceptor. And yeah, GC 891 Delta Alpha, 3 Hams in a row. That's a great virtual cache. Got a lot of hits during Woodstock.
I bet.
Nervous Energies, we're with you, bro. Donuts.
Donuts.
Pause the podcast. We need donuts.
And oops. Gearhead says, and great logging requirements for the Voodoo.
Yeah.
Yes.
A little bit creative. I think chat can correct me, but I believe it's like a one or the other kind of thing. You can either answer some trivia type questions that the info is at the site, or take a photo with yourself with your caching name written on a paper airplane.
Oh, nice.
That's fun. That's well thought out.
Nervous is he'll bring the coffee if we provide the donuts.
All right.
Okay.
My kind of guy.
Brian Ling says, I really should do that one since I drive by it on the way to work all the time.
There you go.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? So that one, I haven't done it either. And it's almost ridiculous because we drive by there so often. But at one point, like leading up to Geo Woodstock, we were saving it because we were going to do an icon run. And we are like, This might be right on our path for our icon run. Well, then when we ended up doing the icon run, a couple of other virtuals had gotten published in the meantime. We're like, this other one is more on the way. So we'll
more
do that
convenient.
one.
Sure.
And then it's just that you almost forget about it. It's like, shoot, we should really do that virtual.
Well, you never know when some summertime souvenir event contest will come up.
Good point, Jeff.
Yeah, so it's not a bad idea to save geocaches for those kind of events, right?
Especially the rare types, like virtuals.
Right. Though I want to go get them. Wits End, you want to read this one?
Subway Mark says, I have flown through Detroit many times, but never left the airport. So I have never claimed Michigan, but I found the virtual last year. So geocaching, I have the Michigan souvenir, but was I ever there? I have the same question about Atlanta, Georgia. I've only been in the airport.
There's no evidence you were there.
Yeah. I don't know. Exactly. I don't know if there's any. We've done a lot of airport virtuals, but it's always been in places we've then found other caches. So I don't think there's any country or state or province that we only have the airport.
I did actually drive through Georgia briefly on a different trip, but for many years that was true. I had only been in the airport.
The Coca-Cola airport.
I've not spent any time in Atlanta, but I hope to someday.
Yeah. Seems like a really interesting city. One of the podcasts I listen to frequently, the Stuff You Should Know podcast, they're in the Atlanta area.
Well, I have friends that live in Rome, Georgia.
There's some do that event.
Georgia, not Italy.
Right, right. Yeah. Rome, Georgia, which I believe is northwest of Atlanta. So there you go. I mean,
you could be caching in the Northwest.
That's right. Northwest Georgia.
So
I digress. Bring us back on track.
So we were talking earlier. So there's some great examples across the Northwest and the world of some of the most favorited virtual caches, and our thoughts and some of your guys' thoughts in the live chat. Thank you, about what makes them great virtuals. But maybe what we should do is just recap. What was the criteria? What is the criteria for getting a virtual reward? So what were the rules that they put out that they used as the selection criteria for the virtual rewards 4.0? Chris,
so basically, what did Subway Mark and GSM Tombstone, these people do to get it.
What did they do right?
If
Yeah.
you didn't get one this year, what do you need to do throughout 2024 to get one in 2025? Hopefully, right?
Good point. Yeah.
Now, let's start off and say geocaching.com doesn't announce when these virtual rewards are going to be distributed. They just kind of happen. So I'm sure they have it all planned out. I'm sure there's a calendar in there that's going to say, oh, virtual rewards 5.0 coming out on this date, but that's not something they announce in advance. So
And
what
there's
you need to do,
no
Go ahead.
guarantee there will be one.
That's right. Exactly.
They could choose not to, but
Mhm.
they probably will.
So what you need to do is you must have a non-event geocache. Okay. It can be anything else but an event published in 2023 that has earned at least 4 favorite points
Ah.
by December 31st, 2023. Okay. This is what you needed to get to this round, right? So we're talking what has already happened. You must have created your geocaching account before June 13th, 2023. So you had to have it more than half a year.
Okay.
Right.
I did that one I qualify for.
Okay. Prior virtual reward recipients are eligible to participate.
Oh, interesting.
Good to know.
Okay. Players who have opted in for virtual rewards 2 and 3, but did not receive a virtual cache, have a higher likelihood of receiving virtual reward 4.0.
That's fair.
So if you got a 2 or 3, you can try for a 4, but your odds are pretty slim you're going to get it because they're going to prioritize, or, I don't know how random this was, but, if it was some sort of, random
algorithm,
they would have given more points, I guess, to the other folks. I think a lot of these things are interesting, and I want to throw out GSM times 2 made a good point, and he said we had no idea what we had to do because the qualifications change every year, and that's true. The qualifications each year have changed slightly. This year's was a little bit different, but I think if you look at it as a theme, right? So say, okay, let's take the specifics of it. Let's look at it as a theme. They're looking for people who place active geocaches. So within the last year, within the last 6 months, whatever time frame you want to put on it, you've published a cache, and that cache has earned at least 4 favorite points. So what they're trying to promote here, and what they'll undoubtedly continue to do, is try and reward, because this is a reward. Remember, this is a privilege to get one of these. They're going to reward people who are putting out quality caches. So if you want to get in the running, and again, exactly as Brian said earlier, we don't know if there's going to be another round in 2025. Maybe there won't be.
Right.
Whenever the next round comes up, what they're going to be doing is rewarding people who have put out quality caches, people who've, as you said, Jim, have had a geocaching account for more than 6 months. And I think those are really kind of and you have to apply once they announce that it's happening.
Okay.
So
get out there and play the game well and enjoy yourself. And odds are you'll qualify if you play well.
You put out a favorite worthy geocache.
Yeah.
You're going to more than likely be in the running.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so there you go. Seebeck Tribe shared that in 2023 it was based on an opt-in to receive and then just a random draw, and she was lucky enough to get one in 2023. That's awesome. GSM times 2 says, he shares, they being HQ learned a lot from the errors made in virtual rewards 1.0. Some people were no longer even geocaching and got a virtual reward. Yeah, I think there was also jokes about, I don't know if it actually ever happened or not, but sock puppet accounts getting virtual rewards, things like that. And I can see how if you're trying to do something nice for the community, it can backfire, right?
Right.
Happens all the time.
Yeah.
No good deed goes unpunished. But yeah, I think they've made it. I don't think the criteria for version 4 were really that steep, to be honest. I think they were pretty fair.
Now, for this round, you didn't have to apply. They just were looking for people who put out a cache within the year and had these qualifications.
I thought you had to. I thought you had to participate. I thought you had to apply for it. So it's interesting.
I don't remember that you did in 2023.
Okay.
But if you had an account for a while and you placed a quality cache, got some favorites, that's a pretty good way to avoid giving them out to sock puppet accounts and
Yeah, for sure.
non-active caches.
Exactly.
So the selection, or at least the announcement, was made on January 17th. HQ randomly selected up to 4,000 eligible geocachers. And what's curious, I would love to have somebody like Mountain Bike on the podcast to talk about this, because I think he's kind of their data guru. Because they also made sure that random selection had geographic distribution, which is tricky, right? Because now you're weighting the random selection, which they already said they're doing, because if you had already won one, you're getting a lower weighting in the random selection. And it's also going to be based on geographic distribution, which I assume means in countries with a much higher population of geocachers, they will have a weighting slightly against them to
there you go. Yes.
To make it a little more fair for countries where there isn't. So basically, USA, Germany, France, Czech,
which, almost any flag that has red, white, and blue in it.
Right?
Pretty much. I was going to say,
except for Germany, black, yellow, and orange,
red.
Yeah. But yeah.
So they did the drawing on January 17th of this year, and if you were rewarded one, you have until January 17th of next year to place it. So that's a goodly amount of time. But don't let it get away from you. There'll be a lot of people submitting their virtuals in December.
Yeah, there will.
Or January 16th. Just like this. They do the same thing with taxes, right? They wait till the last possible minute.
It's human nature. Chris, do you want to maybe speak to that last bullet on the process? I think that's a really interesting one.
All geocaching community volunteers, okay, so the reviewers, the moderator, the translators who qualify will receive a virtual reward as thanks for giving their time to support the geocaching community. I think that's fabulous, right?
Yeah.
If you're putting time in, and I know reviewers put a lot of time in, right? Moderators, boy, there's a job I don't necessarily want, right?
Nobody wants that job. I don't know why they have mods. I don't know why anybody wants to do that job. But anyways, go on.
Or translators, right? There's some hard work there. And these people do this as do it for free to help geocaching move forward and gain momentum in the world. So if they qualify, they're going to get, or they already have received, one of these virtual rewards as a thank you for the time they've given to the community. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I love the fact that what they did is they said the volunteers who give so much of their time to the community without pay, like these are volunteers. This is a reward or a perk they want to give to them, and I think that's great. But they also have to meet the qualifications in order to get it. So if you're a reviewer who never puts out a cache, then you're not going to get the opportunity. So I thought,
that's interesting. Okay, so do they do it because the reviewers have two accounts, right? They have a reviewer account and then they have their regular player account. And now
I have to assume it is to their regular player account because HQ knows who they are.
But what if the reviewer put out under his reviewer account, his or her reviewer account, a favorite worthy cache?
I don't know that reviewers generally do that. I mean, maybe they do.
I don't know. I'm just asking
reviewers I know don't put out caches under their reviewer account.
Reviewers I know I don't think go caching. No.
Funny.
Here, this is from GSM Times 2, and he's giving us an idea of this weighting. Okay. Oddly, the San Francisco Bay Area got 20 virtual rewards in 4.0. Only 20 in 3.0 were awarded to all of California.
Wow. Well, I guess the folks who work at Google figured out the algorithm and
Yeah,
got what we got.
that's Google though.
Aren't they in the Bay Area? No.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
Have
Anyway,
you used their maps? They're everywhere.
I think that but to GSM times 2 point, yeah, it is kind of weird that happened, but sometimes that's just data, right? That's just random. Sometimes works that way, right? Like I think it illustrates that, it might feel a little unfair to some people, but then next time around, they might get none. So there's probably also a pretty high population of geocachers in that area, I would suspect.
I would imagine. Yeah, it's a fairly population dense area. So,
all right.
Brian Link says, for the most part, the reviewers keep their player and reviewer accounts separate. There are a few longtime reviewers who predate this separation and play on their reviewer account. I know. I was just curious, though.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. It's good to know. All right. Next thing, Jim, if you want to read this, and I noticed ways back somebody made a comment in the chat about it as well. But Jim, if you want to grab this next thing.
So yeah, I saw that there are now virtual caches at each of the 6 Pacific Northwest trolls. So that's 10 Adventure Lab stops and a virtual cache for each of the trolls.
That's pretty cool. I can't remember who commented on that now. I don't see it flagged, but yeah. So it was kind of funny because when they announced the rewards and that they were all distributed, and everybody who got one was all excited on Facebook, and then somebody made a comment about the trolls. I what? So I went and took a look. I'm like, oh man, I've just visited 5 out of the 6. And now and I was like, oh well, I guess there's an excuse to go back. It was funny because Mrs. Land Monkey's response to that was a little more disappointed than mine. Like, are you? We were just there. But sometimes that's the way it just goes. It was GSM times 2. Thank you, GSM times 2. Yeah, HQ awarded those and for each of the trolls. And again, I think it's great because those are such remarkable and amazing places to visit. And as somebody else said, they're not going to last forever. They are made to biodegrade.
The trolls are.
The trolls are, yeah. They're made out of recycled wood. And
I don't actually know. The only troll I know is the one under the Fremont Bridge there, and that's concrete with a Volkswagen. So for maybe somebody else out there like me that doesn't know, what are these trolls that you speak of?
So there's a Norwegian sculptor who's actually been doing this kind of art all around the world, but he was commissioned to build 6 of these in the Northwest. Most of them are in the general Seattle area. 2 are in Seattle. One is on Bainbridge Island. One is on Vashon, an island you're familiar with, Jim.
Yeah.
And there we go. And then, that one there on the screen right now, that's the one down near Portland. So there's one in Oregon and 5. In Issaquah. Issaquah is where the 6th one is. But they're fascinating and
great. That's a great looking.
Yeah, they're huge. Like they're 15 feet tall. Like they're really big.
That one reminds me of a Maurice Sendak.
Right? They have that vibe for sure. So Thomas Dambo is the artist who sculpted these, and they're all made out of recycled wood, which is one of the things. We went a month or so ago. We went and visited a bunch of them, and we met up with a friend of the show, Komakino. Yeah, he even commented. We found one in Seattle together, in Ballard. We went and did that one together. Had a lot of fun, and it's funny because you get up close to them, and they have that cedar smell.
Oh, sure.
Because they're made out of recycled cedar, right? So like, I guess old pallets and things like that. So it's really neat. Like you get up close to them and it just has that nice smell.
That's cool.
Whoever thought trolls smelled so good, right?
Yeah. Now that I see some of those pictures, they do look familiar, but I had forgotten.
They were in the news and the media
Yeah.
for quite a while, and then I think it's kind of faded out. But yeah, there you go. So there's the 6 in the Northwest, and they tell a story between the 6 of them. So there's kind of like a trail you can do that tells the story. The final one is on Bainbridge. No, Vashon. The final one's on Vashon.
Right. Portland, Bainbridge Island, West Seattle, Issaquah, Ballard, and Vashon.
There you go. And I think my 2 favorites, well, I don't know, it's hard to say, but the West Seattle one was amazing. And it's right out at the waterfront, and it's playing a flute. And the story is it's supposed to be calling to the killer whales, to the orcas.
Okay.
Really neat. Nervous Energy says generally some of the coolest sculptures he's ever seen. Well worth the drive. It is. It's well worth getting out there, getting 10 Adventure Lab stops and a virtual cache, right? As well as whatever caches are around them. Heather says she arrived in Everett today, hoping to do the Troll and Ballard this weekend. Awesome. You'll enjoy it. And a couple of these, they're all placed at areas that have some sort of relevance to the Nordic culture in the Pacific Northwest. And the Ballard one and the one near Portland are both at very interesting, very nice cultural centers, Norwegian cultural centers. So that's pretty cool.
When I think of Nordic culture, I think of Ballard.
Do you? I didn't. I learned.
Yeah, sure, you betcha.
Okay.
Starcacher says the Toledo area cachers did not expect to get any of these virtual rewards because of the geographic area criteria. We have 3 reviewers within 30 miles that have gotten virtuals in the past rounds, but 3 got one, including me.
Well, congrats, Starcacher.
Starcacher, I didn't know you were a reviewer. So,
is that what he's saying?
Well, that's kind of what I got, right?
So you're reading that? Okay. I read that slightly different. But there you go.
Yeah, I just read it as 3 cachers, but it could have been. Maybe he is.
Maybe.
We'll find out soon. I have a hunch.
I think we're just going to make up a story that he is a reviewer.
Yeah, exactly. He's
he's reviewed something in life.
Until we're informed differently.
Yeah.
And even if we are, we'll just keep
We'll
going.
just protest it anyway.
See, he just says they're a reviewer.
I don't believe him.
There's not a reviewer, but I don't read that first part. I just read a reviewer. So anyway.
Well, if he really was a reviewer, he'd have a different reviewer name anyway. So Starcacher is not a reviewer.
I see where you're going there.
All right.
Okay.
I think he's shaking his fist at the screen right now.
We just outed him, didn't we?
So guys, we're having a lot of fun. We're almost at time. But I think maybe what would be important to help everybody is one last thing is if we can kind of run quickly through the guidelines for placing a virtual cache. So we talked about the selection criteria. So how do you get this privilege? But once you have the privilege, what things do you need to keep in mind when you choose a location and you decide to submit it for review?
First off is permission. You have to virtual caches have to be placed in locations where geocachers are allowed to go, right?
Yeah.
So you can't say, hey, I want to do one, and you have to go inside the middle of the Space Needle. Well, it's not allowed.
Yeah, right in the hot spring in Yellowstone. You can't go there.
Middle of the freeway.
Yeah. A lot of times in life, I say it's easier to get forgiveness than permission, but not in this instance. You need to get permission to go there.
How about proximity, Jim?
Interestingly enough, I was going to say they do not have proximity restrictions. So when you place an ordinary cache, you have to maintain a certain distance. I forget, 500 feet, 160 meters. Is that right?
12 feet.
Okay. So, and that's away from any other cache or any other stop of part of a multi-cache or the final of a mystery. So you may not, this is a great place for a cache. And then you find out, nope, there's a multi-stop there, or there's a virtual or a puzzle cache final location there. So if the cache owner wants to avoid placing a virtual cache with similar content, you can ask your viewer to check for nearby unpublished caches, just to make sure you're not spoiling something. So you have the right to, the proximity rules don't apply, but you can still contact the reviewer and say, hey, is this okay here? Is this
Good
going to
idea.
spoil something else?
Awesome. Another thing to keep in mind is vacation virtuals. We know vacation caches are a bit of a challenge for reviewers, a bit of a problem. Vacation virtuals. So what we're talking about is if you have gone somewhere on vacation and you're like, oh, I love this place so much. I want to highlight it. I want to bring people here. I'm going to place a virtual here. The cache owner must have visited the location themselves and any additional waypoints in the previous 2 months before submitting the virtual cache for publication. They really want to encourage you to place virtual caches closer to your home, ideally, but you can place one, a vacation virtual, but you've got to have been there within 2 months of submitting it.
And also, when we talk about the cache page, text and logging tasks must be submitted in an official language of the location or English. Additional languages are encouraged, but the local language is must be listed first. So if this is in France, it must be in French.
On Vulcan.
Exactly. It has to be in Vulcan.
If it's on Praxis, it needs to be in Klingon.
Yeah. So there you go.
Acceptable logging tasks. So this is a good thing to keep in mind. The purpose is to show the geocacher was at the location. Really, that's what you're trying to do is, we're all trying to reduce arm sharing, but probably never get it 100%. Anything other than illustrating the geocacher was at the location should be optional. What they consider some acceptable logging tasks, questions that can only be answered by visiting the location. So reading information off a plaque, things like that. Tasks for the finder to fulfill at the location. For example, find the statue at the posted coordinates and post a picture on the north side of the statue. Things like that, right? Very specific.
Yeah.
Likely people haven't done those things on their holiday snaps. Photos of the geocacher at the location, but remember, a face cannot be required in the photo. That's part of the privacy legislation HQ needs to adhere to. That's a voluntary thing. Another good option, though, as an acceptable logging task is photos of a personal item at the location. A trackable, a piece of paper with the geocacher's username is always a good one. So stuff like that.
People use a GPS. Yeah. Something. But, most people are using their phone. It's hard to take a picture of the phone with the phone.
Yeah.
And the waypoints. Virtual caches can have additional virtual waypoints. Every waypoint must be visited to log the cache, and that has to be on the cache page. Now, physical waypoints are not allowed, and the posted coordinates cannot be bogus coordinates.
Like a mystery cache or a puzzle cache or something.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
Right.
Great stuff.
Cool.
GSM times 2, he has a FATAS. It says, since it didn't come up during the show, what makes a good virtual location and a good virtual experience? Absolutely. We wanted to get to that. We've kind of run out of time. Yeah. We may even just need to do a second podcast on ideas for quality virtual caches. But we wanted to make sure people just at least understood what we were talking about and the guidelines and the rules that are in play, because I think that helps you to make sure that you can get your virtual out with the least amount of resistance.
And what makes for a good virtual location is something that's important to you, right? It really, that's what I feel. If it's important to you, it's going to be important to others. Yeah. So go to a spot that you go, wow, this is one of my favorite spots. I like to come here because X, Y, and Z.
Chris, the Dairy Queen where I had my first date.
Yep, exactly.
That virtual location.
Yeah,
it could be.
Same place you have that waymark.
Yeah. Yeah.
And saw where I was going.
And a good virtual experience. I think it's more than taking a picture or posting, hey, I was here. Find something unique about that location that you can't Google, that you can't, search for.
Yeah.
Something that is going to make it, wow, I didn't notice that.
Or try and make the logging task something a little bit creative.
Mhm.
Even
I
if
like
it's
the
an
paper airplane idea.
That
right,
was fun. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
something a little bit creative, a little bit different. That isn't like ramping the difficulty up to something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right.
You mentioned the vacation virtuals.
Yes.
They discourage this. Really bring somebody close to your home, to your local area, because the one thing that we still mention there is maintenance. You may think, well, there's no container, there's no logbook, there's still maintenance, because sometimes things change. They change the plaque at a location, or there's construction and things move or whatever. So it's helpful if you live near or frequently visit the location that you are placing a
Mhm.
virtual, because you are still responsible for deleting inappropriate or phony logs and updating your cache page if the thing, the description or something changes.
Or if there's construction and you can no longer get to it,
Yeah.
whatever.
Very cool.
Fantastic. One more. Gearhead says there is or was a mammoth made of driftwood in BC. You would need a boat or kayak to get to it. That was going to be my virtual, but I have pivoted.
Pivot.
I've been to that one. Chris, you were with us when we went
Yes.
there. You just didn't hike up the hill to it.
That's right. That's when you tried to kill me.
That was when we tried to kill you.
Yes.
Obviously didn't work. We're not
No.
very good at it.
Sorry. Hey, folks, thank you so much for all of you who don't try to kill me on every other hike that we go on. But thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest.
Absolutely. We want to take a moment to thank Land Sharks and Gold Country Geotourism, our corporate Denali level sponsors. LANDSHARKZ.ca is the outdoor adventure and geocaching store. Check them out online. And remember, they're shipping those online orders daily. And for absolutely amazing geocaching adventures, check out exploregoldcountry.com and don't forget to download the app. We also want to thank all of our faithful Denali level supporters, whether they're corporate or not, and that's Land Sharks, Gold Country Geotourism, but also Groovy Owl, Cool Cow Cachers, and Cachly, the geocaching app. If you want to know more about supporting this here podcast, well, click that Patreon link right over there on the cachingnw.com website.
Like LG 9000 did.
And geocaches.
And RE5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Camp Clan.
Wet Coaster.
Utah Fox.
Alarobrick.
Wino Seattle.
Seabeck Tribe.
BC Rock Crawler.
Korsgat.
Genies.
How about Segehove?
How about Trexer?
CRS 98.
Mountain Bike.
Team Noltex.
You, Dak.
Limax.
Just finding our way.
Actively participating in the chat tonight, as always, GSM times 2.
Just Carlo.
Kev MacD.
Log work.
Hey, Subway Mark.
Green Words.
Also participating and helping us get some prizes ready for the next contest, Nervous Energies.
B Pendragon.
Peach of Washington.
Terrible lunch. Great guy. Gas station tuna.
I think he enjoyed the lunch. MC3 Cats.
Kitty Quest.
M-Nerve.
GeoNav Pro.
Boomer 365.
Kid Vegas 19.
Flagman.
Antaeus.
Whidbey Island Gal.
J-Car.
Skyhawker.
Dora Moore.
And Acrodoc. Folks, thank you so much. And we want to, again, thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode of Caching in the Northwest. Your support helps keep the quality shows coming. If you like the show, please click the Patreon link on the cachingnw.com website. Now, if you didn't like the show, let us know what you want to talk about. But if you like the vibe, please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. and leave us a review. You may want to remember that. Leave us a review. If you were in a restaurant, you would tip. If you were in a live audience, you would clap. But since you're on a podcast, leave us a free, fast, fabulous, fantastic 5-star review. You can call into 253-693-TFTC and leave us a comment, ask us a question, or help us find one of these trolls any time of the day or night. Of course, you can email us at feedback@cachingandw.com. Join us every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific for a live show and chat. This show is produced by Chris Umfenauer, Jim Paulwitz, Jay Kennedy, and Brian Lang. It's licensed under Creative Commons Attribution 3.0 license, copyright 2024 by Chris Umfenauer. And folks, I ask you to stay tuned for, I lost my button. There it is. There it is.
The after show.
Where did that button go? It's always there.
Well done, Chris. Well done. You rolled through that masterfully. Thank you. That is a lot of words, and they're not all easy words.
Yeah. As long as you keep using the same letter, you can keep going through it.
You'd think, but not always. Alliteration.
Let's see. I thought this was an interesting one by GSM times 2. How difficult should a virtual be? What about terrain? Number of stops? Challenging questions.
Well, I mean, I think you just it's up to the cache owner really to decide what they want to do, as long as their DT rating is appropriate to the actual difficulty and or terrain you're doing. So, I mean, if you wanted to have a terrain 5 virtual, like what Gearhead was saying, you put it somewhere where you need a boat to get to it, and now it's a T5. If you want the terrain, if it's somewhere that you can roll up to in a wheelchair, then it's a T1 terrain, and
Right.
then all the usual points in between. So I think for terrain, and I get what he's asking is like, what do we think would be ideal? But I don't know. I think there's a range that's acceptable. I think you probably don't want the difficulty to be too high. You don't want to make it overly difficult for people to do it, because then I don't know, it's not as much fun.
I was going to say, did you see Dora Moore's comment earlier? She said, took a bus to the SkyTrain and then to the sea bus for a new virtual. You need to take a pick halfway across the Burrard Inlet, and it's rated a 2 terrain. She questions that. So Brian Lang said you should discuss that with the CO and see if he'll adjust it to a T5.
Yeah, I mean, technically, it's arguably now it's the boat that you're taking is a public transit boat.
Exactly. You're not required to own it.
And you have to be on the public transit boat to take it. It's the sea bus virtual. So I kind of see both sides of that.
Right.
I think an easy argument could be made if it was submitted as a T5, but I think, arguably it doesn't need to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good question.
Now, we have a lot of people moving about. I don't know if you saw Heather that drove up, was it from Portland to Everett today?
Yeah. Stopped in Tacoma.
And stopped in Tacoma. Nervous Energies heading up to Aceto and Langley next month.
Awesome.
Added that Voodoo virtual to my list to swing by and grab. And then on his way back to Bellingham. I need to work on my paper airplane skills.
Absolutely. Oh,
Well,
hey, Corscott.
Hello, Corscott.
Hey.
Good morning.
Welcome.
Nice to see you too.
Man, has the podcast been going on? Is this long? We started at 9 p.m.
We're running late, I guess.
We can just keep talking.
Just for Corscott. Yeah.
GSM times 2 says we have an old one, meaning a virtual, that has 15 stops.
Ooh,
People say
that's
they
a lot.
hate it, but they've given it 42% favorite points.
Well, Chris and Jim, the virtual we did together at Hatley Castle in Victoria when you guys came and visited a few years back. That was what, 6 or 7 stops on that one?
It seems right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly, but it sounds
and they
right.
were quite spread out, right?
were.
I mean, it took some time to do.
But I didn't mind it. I mean, the thing is, you know what you're getting into, right? The difficulty level was up. And so, and I think if I recall correctly, I'd have to double check it, but I think they had said even in there, they've given an approximate amount of time you should commit to it, which is really helpful. So I think if you're going to do that, if you're going to ramp up the difficulty, add a lot of stops,
Yeah.
if in your description, in fairness, you say this is going to take about X amount of time, because virtual caches are often targeted by people visiting, right? Especially ones that start to get a few favorite points. They're going to be high up on the list for people who are visiting an area. So, help people out.
That's right.
Give a brother a break.
Seaback Tribe says, I'm going to Texas for the Mega on February 29th.
Nice.
Okay, we're getting the
Signal.
we're getting the signal. This has gone. This might be one of our longest episodes.
He
So
was
folks-
just saying Texas. T is for Texas.
T for
Okay,
Texas.
we can keep
Gotcha.
going.
Okay.
All right.
That's what, of course, yeah. Or maybe he's saying T for 3 mega events.
See, now he's got the X from Texas.
Yeah.
Oh, he's spelling out
T,
Texas.
X.
That's Texas.
Make an S. Make an S now.
The postal abbreviation for Texas is TX. So we're good.
Folks, thank you so much for joining us and sticking with us in this long episode. Until next week, which it may take this long to listen to the episode, get out and get caching in the Northwest.